Okay guys, welcome back to Sanity Maintenance. Today I'm working on a vehicle, working on my wife's van. This is going to go as far as well as with outboards and things like that too. What I got going on is I have a hose that I need to replace. It doesn't have a hole in it or anything like that, but I can't get it anymore. They don't make it. The vehicle's got close to 300,000 miles on it. I've tried to find the hose. I've even found diagrams of it, the numbers of it, and I can't find it. What I am going to do is I do have some hose like this, which is a heater hose, would need to be replaced on it. And I'm going to make my own. Now, I don't suggest you actually going out and doing this, but this is me doing it on my own. You can get hurt and you can get burnt by doing it, okay? But I will say that the process of doing this, not every heater hose will bend in perfectly like you want it to, or be molded like you want it to. All different types of heater hoses, they all bend differently. Some of them bend great, some of them don't bend worth a shit. It's just, it is what it is. If you're looking for an oddball hose, it has to be molded before you have to actually do this. A lot of times you just stop into your nearest mom and pops, CarQuest or something like that. A good friend behind there say, hey, can I just walk in the back and take a look and see what kind of hoses you got hanging around? You may not be able to find one. You may find one that's close. You can take the one you got with you if you can, or get an idea of what it looks like. Once you get in there, every time take a look, hey, well, this one's pretty close to what I have, I can cut it down to what I need and go from there. Sometimes that's the easier way of fixing it if you can't get the part. But me, I can't get the part. I don't even look. So they let me look around and I can't find what I'm looking for. So next thing is I got to mold it. I'm going to use zip ties, a piece of metal bent around, and we'll kind of go from there. I'm going to heat it up in some hot boiling water. And once I get done with that, I'm going to go from there. So we'll see what the finished product looks like. It just needs to bend slightly, about like this, without actually collapsing like this one's doing here. I need to get away from that. I need it to bend about like this here to go from the upper part of the motor to the lower part of the motor, just how it stays cool. So we're going to go from there. Thank you. We'll be right back. Alright, this is where we stand so far. The heater hose is zip tied down enough so I can kind of keep it from collapsing in any kind of way. The metal here on the back side of it is for basically squishing it down, as you can see here. Keep the actual hose kind of straight from collapsing. I want it to shape a certain way. You can actually take this piece of metal here and U-shape it with a hammer or something and zip tie it to the metal if you'd like, to take it and hold it down and make it do the shape that you want it. I like it like this. It seems to work okay. I've done many of different ones, especially on outboard motors and stuff where you just can't find that hose you're looking for, or somebody brings something in that needs to be fixed. You got a hose, but you're not bent the right way. You can do this using a clothes hanger. You can do this in numerous different ways. I've done it with wire going on the inside before, heavy gauge wire, where you can bend the wire on the inside and then zip tie it to keep it from collapsing on the inside. They make tools for this, which I don't need to buy. I have generally just used the things that I have laying around. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is take and put this in a nice hot thing of water here when it decides to start boiling, which is starting to right now. And I'll get that placed in here. I'm going to let it boil for a little bit and go from there. But this is just an old pot I had in the shop. I bring in and use whenever I'm doing something like this. Alright, she's down in here in the water now. She's getting ready to come back up to a really good boil here in a minute. Now be aware, these zip ties do sometimes give away while they're in the pot and you got all this heat on them. So they will pop a wire out and something like that. It could hurt yourself. So, I'm not responsible for what you're doing. So just giving you a heads up. So once this comes up to a little bit better boil here, I'm going to let it sit like it is for a little bit. And I'm going to pull it out and I'm going to cool it right off with some water and then probably put it in the freezer and go from there. Alright, it's actually boiling pretty good now. Keep in mind, you can use like a little small piece of wire or something if you don't have zip ties laying around. Wire would probably be a little bit better choice to use, or some string or something. If these zip ties will give away some every once in a while in the heat like this. They're not exactly made to do this, so keep that in mind if you're ever doing this. So like I said, whatever you do, you're responsible for your own actions, not me. All right, guys? Back. All right, giving a little bit of cool down real quick here, so I can manage a little better. Some nice cold water. Been there for a little while. We're back. All right, she's in the freezer now, so we'll see what we got when we get done. All right, we finally got where I wanted it here, and had it bent perfectly about the way I want it here. It's not collapsing in here on any kind of way. It should be sitting about like this, the way I got to put it back on once I get the old one off. So this should fit perfectly, and it should cool just fine. I don't have anything collapsing, so that's good. That's a good thing. Keep in mind, if you are heating them up and you need a much harder bend than this, you can generally, as you're setting it up, you want to set it up at a harder angle while you're heating it up, as in something like this. So once it does get done cooling down, it'll take its shape like that. You understand what I'm saying? So you always try to give it a little bit more extreme bend, not necessarily in the middle, but on the ends here. It takes a little more to get them to actually, turn in a little more. So if you're bending one, it has to be bent pretty much about like that. You want to be coming in about like this here, but also having this where it's not collapsed at the time. All right, guys. I hope this was helpful. Just remember, you're on your own on something like this. Y'all don't mess around and burn yourself, okay? Y'all have a good night.